My son-in-law raised his glass and bragged, "I'm flipping the family beach house. Easy profit." I just smiled. He didn't know I quietly bought that house years ago. He also didn't know the contractor waiting outside was furious. 5 minutes later, everything was going to change. But let me back up. The restaurant was one of those overpriced tourist traps that locals avoid during peak season. White tablecloths, fake nautical decor, waiters in striped shirts pretending to be French. My daughter picked it. She always picked places like this when she wanted to make a statement. Tonight's statement was clear: look how successful we are. I sat at the head of the table, which was ironic considering I had no control over anything happening around me. At least, that's what everyone thought. My wife sat to my right, her face neutral, her hands folded in her lap. She'd barely touched her wine. That should have been their first clue. Across from me, my son-in-law, let's call him Derek because that's his name, held court like a king addressing peasants. He wore a tailored suit that probably cost more than my monthly mortgage payment. His hair was gelled back, his teeth unnaturally white, his watch heavy enough to anchor a small boat. Everything about him screamed new money, trying desperately to look like old money. My daughter sat beside him, her hand resting on his arm, her smile fixed and bright. She looked so much like her mother at that age. Same cheekbones, same dark hair, same way of tilting her head when she laughed. But where my wife's eyes were sharp and calculating, my daughter's were empty. She'd learned to perform happiness without feeling it. "So here's the plan," Derek continued, his voice carrying across the restaurant. Other diners glanced over, probably wondering who this loud asshole was. "The place needs work, obviously. New kitchen, updated bathrooms, maybe knock out a wall or two, but the location? Prime real estate. Beachfront property in this town sells itself." I nodded slowly, taking a sip of water. My wife shifted slightly in her seat. "My buddy knows a contractor," Derek said, gesturing with his fork. "Guy owes me a favor. We're talking wholesale prices on materials, quick turnaround, flip it by spring, conservative estimate. We clear $200,000, maybe more if we stage it right." "That's wonderful," someone said. Probably my daughter. She was always saying things like that. Derek leaned back in his chair, his chest puffed out. "The beauty of it is, nobody's using the place anyway. It's just sitting there, rotting. Might as well put it to work, you know? Make it earn its keep." I set down my water glass very carefully. "And the paperwork?" He blinked. "What?" "The deed. Title transfer, property records." Derek waved his hand dismissively. "Family property, man. We don't need to worry about all that bureaucratic nonsense. It's been in the family for years." "Has it?" It wasn't a question. My wife's lips twitched, just barely. If you didn't know her, you'd miss it entirely. "Of course," Derek said, his smile faltering just a fraction. "Your wife's grandmother left it to the family, right? A community property or whatever." My wife spoke for the first time that evening. "Actually, my grandmother never owned that house." The table went quiet. Derek's smile froze on his face like a mask. My daughter looked between us, her performance of happiness cracking just slightly. "What do you mean?" Derek asked, his voice tight. "I mean," my wife said, her tone pleasant and mild, "that the property records show a very clear chain of ownership, and my grandmother's name never appears on any of them." Derek's jaw worked. "Well, somebody in the family." "Someone did," I said, "but not who you think." I watched him process this. You could almost see the gears turning behind his eyes, trying to figure out the angle, trying to determine if this was a joke or a test or something he'd missed in his due diligence. Which was funny, because Derek didn't do due diligence. He did assumptions. "Look," he said, setting down his fork with a clatter. "I don't know what kind of game this is, but I've already got materials ordered, contractors lined up, and buyers interested. This isn't the time for weird family drama." "No drama," I said. "Just clarity." My daughter finally spoke, her voice small and worried. "Dad, what are you talking about?" I looked at her, really looked at her. When had she stopped being my little girl and started being the stranger who avoided my calls and forgot my birthday and only showed up when she needed something? When had the shift happened? "The beach house," I said slowly, "was purchased in 2003 by a private buyer through a limited liability company. The transaction was legal, documented, and recorded with the county. The property has been maintained, taxes have been paid, and the title has remained unchanged for over 20 years. Derek's face was turning red. "So what? Some LLC bought it. Probably your wife's family trust or something." "No trust," my wife said. "Just a very boring, very straightforward business entity." "And the name on that entity?" I asked, still looking at my daughter. "The person listed as the managing member?" Silence. Derek stood up suddenly, his chair scraping against the floor. Several diners turned to look. This is ridiculous. I don't have time for this cryptic bullshit. I've got a closing scheduled. I've got deposits down. I've got... Nothing, I said quietly. You've got nothing, Derek, because you can't sell property you don't own. His mouth opened, closed, opened again. My daughter's hand fluttered to her throat. Dad, the LLC is mine, I said. I bought the house 22 years ago when your mother's family was going through probate. I paid fair market value. I have every receipt, every document, every piece of paper that proves I own that property free and clear. It's been mine the entire time. Derek's face went from red to white. You're lying. I'm not. Prove it. I pulled out my phone, opened my email, and turned the screen toward him. It showed a scanned copy of the deed, complete with my name, my signature, and the county recorder's stamp. I'd had it ready for 3 weeks, ever since my daughter had mentioned Derek's big plans at a family barbecue. Derek stared at the screen. His hands clenched into fists. But why? My daughter asked, her voice breaking. Why would you buy it and never tell anyone? Because, I said, I knew someone would try exactly this someday. I knew someone would look at that house and see dollar signs instead of family history. I knew someone would get greedy. This is insane, Derek said, but his voice had lost its confidence. You've been sitting on this for years, just waiting to... To what? Protect my property? Protect my investment? Protect myself from people like you? He slammed his hand on the table. Silverware jumped. Wine glasses trembled. A waiter started moving toward us, then thought better of it. People like me, Derek repeated, his voice low and dangerous. You mean people who actually do something instead of sitting around counting their pennies like some retired nobody? My wife's hand moved to my arm, a warning. I ignored it. I mean people, I said, who assume, who take, who think they're entitled to things that don't belong to them. That house belongs to the family. No, I said. It belongs to me, legally, officially, in every way that matters. And you've spent money you didn't have on a project you can't complete? How much? How much what? How much have I? How much is already? Spent? I asked. I don't know, Derek. How much did you promise that contractor? How much did you put down on materials? How much did you borrow against a sale that can't happen? He sat down heavily, like someone had cut his strings. My daughter was crying now, quiet tears running down her carefully made-up face. Daddy, please, we can work this out. We can... No, I said gently. We can't. Because this isn't a misunderstanding. This is theft, or attempted theft, or fraud, or something in that general neighborhood. I'll sue you, Derek said, but his voice was hollow. For what? Owning my own property? Go ahead. I have 2 decades of documentation. What do you have? A handshake and a dream? He stood up again, slower this time, his movements mechanical. This isn't over. Actually, my wife said, her voice still pleasant, I think you'll find that it very much is. Derek grabbed his jacket from the back of his chair. Come on, he said to my daughter. We're leaving. She hesitated, looking between us. Now, Derek said. She stood, gathering her purse, her movements jerky and uncertain. Dad, I know, I said, and I did know. I knew she'd been part of this from the beginning. I knew she'd encouraged Derek, fed him information, helped him plan. I knew because my wife and I had pieced it together over months of careful watching and listening. My daughter wasn't a victim here. She was a participant. They left without another word. The restaurant slowly returned to normal around us. Conversations resumed. Forks clinked against plates. Someone laughed at another table. My wife picked up her wine glass and took a small sip. That went well. Did it? Better than expected, actually. I thought he'd throw something. The night's young. She smiled, a real smile this time, small and private. How long do you think it takes him to find the contractor? I checked my watch. If the contractor's where we think he is, about 10 minutes. And then? Then, I said, things get interesting. We paid the bill and walked out into the cool evening air. The restaurant was only 2 blocks from the marina, and you could smell salt water and diesel fuel and old fish. Tourist season was over, which meant the town belonged to locals again. Empty storefronts, closed restaurants, streets that rolled up at 9 o'clock. We got to our car just as Derek's BMW peeled out of the parking lot, tires squealing, my daughter's pale face visible through the passenger window. They turned left toward the beach road, toward the house. My wife slid into the passenger seat and buckled her seatbelt. Should we follow? No need, I said. He'll be back. You're sure? I'm sure. I started the engine and pulled out slowly, turning right instead of left, heading toward the old part of town where the year-round residents lived in small houses with chain-link fences and boats on trailers in their driveways. This was where I'd grown up. This was where I'd learned that people with money weren't smarter or better or more deserving. They just had money. We drove in silence for a while. My wife stared out the window, watching the familiar streets slide by. "Do you think she knows?" she asked finally. "About what?" "About how bad this is going to get." I thought about it. No, she thinks this is a setback, an inconvenience. She doesn't understand that Derek's not just embarrassed. He's trapped. Good. The word hung in the air between us. We'd been married for 32 years. We'd been through everything. But I'd never heard that particular edge in her voice before, that particular satisfaction. "How much does he owe the contractor?" she asked. $47,000. She whistled low. "And he doesn't have it. No, he borrowed it, against the house sale. Which isn't happening. And the contractor?" "Is not," I said carefully, "the patient type." We pulled into our driveway. Our house was small and plain, a 2-bedroom ranch that we'd bought when we were young and stupid and optimistic. We'd meant to upgrade, meant to move to one of those nice developments closer to the water. But somehow we never did. Somehow this place had been enough. Inside, my wife kicked off her heels and padded into the kitchen in her stockinged feet. I heard the refrigerator open, the clink of bottles, the hiss of a beer being opened. She came back and handed one to me. "To property rights," she said, holding up her own bottle. "To knowing what you own." We drank. The beer was cold and bitter and perfect. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I pulled it out and looked at the screen. Unknown number. "Speak of the devil," I said. My wife raised her eyebrows. I answered. "Hello?" Derek's voice. But different now, ragged, desperate. "Good evening, Derek." You knew what I owed him? I knew a lot of things." "He's here. He's at the house. Derek's voice cut off, replaced by shouting in the background. Male voices, angry, overlapping. "Is that him now?" I asked. "You set me up. This whole thing was a setup. You let me think the house was available, you let me make plans, you let me borrow money, and the whole time you knew." "I didn't let you do anything," I said calmly. "You did all of that yourself. I just owned a house. That's all. Everything else was your choice." More shouting. A crash. The sound of something breaking. "He wants his money," Derek said, his voice high and thin. "He says he's not leaving until he gets his money." "Then pay him." "I don't have it." "That," I said, "sounds like a personal problem. You can't do this. You can't just—" "I'm not doing anything, Derek. You did this. You owe that man money for work he expected to do on a property you don't own. That's on you, not me." "I'll tell everyone. I'll tell them what you did." "What did I do?" Silence. Just breathing and distant shouting. "Exactly," I said. "I didn't do anything illegal. I didn't do anything wrong. I owned property and you tried to steal it. That's the story." "Please," Derek said, and now his voice was small and broken. "Please, I just need a little time. I can fix this. I can—" "No," I said. "You can't." I hung up. My wife was watching me, her beer forgotten in her hand. "How did it feel?" "Good," I admitted. "It felt good. And now? Now we wait." "For what?" I smiled, but it wasn't a nice smile. For him to realize that this is just the beginning. The storage unit was in the bad part of town, the part where chain-link fences had holes cut in them and security cameras pointed at empty parking lots. I'd rented it 12 years ago under the LLC's name, paid in cash every 6 months, and never once mentioned it to anyone except my wife. We pulled up at 11 o'clock that night, 2 hours after Derek's panicked phone call. The facility was one of those self-service places where they give you a gate code and leave you alone. Perfect for people who wanted privacy. Perfect for people who had things to hide. Not that I had anything to hide. Everything in that unit was perfectly legal. Just documents, mostly. Boring stuff. Property records, tax returns, inspection reports, contractor estimates. The kind of paperwork that would put most people to sleep. But paperwork is power, if you know how to use it. My wife followed me down the row of orange doors, our footsteps echoing on concrete. Unit 247. I unlocked the padlock, rolled up the door, and pulled the chain to turn on the bare bulb inside. The unit was about 10 feet by 10 feet and nearly empty. A metal filing cabinet stood against one wall. A cardboard banker's box sat on top of it. That was it. 12 years of monthly payments for 20 square feet of floor space and a filing cabinet. Was it worth it? My wife asked, looking around. Ask me tomorrow. I opened the filing cabinet and started pulling out folders. Everything was labeled, dated, organized with the kind of obsessive attention to detail that people usually mocked me for. But now that obsessive attention was about to pay off. The first folder contained the original purchase documents for the beach house. Deed, title insurance, closing statement. I'd bought the property for $189,000 in 2003, which was high even then, but the previous owners had been desperate to settle their mother's estate. I'd paid cash, which made the transaction simple and fast. The second folder held every tax payment I'd made since then. 22 years of canceled checks, each one dated and notarized. The third folder was insurance policies. Homeowners coverage, liability protection, storm damage riders. All in the LLC's name. All current, all showing continuous coverage since day one. He never checked, my wife said, reading over my shoulder. No, he assumed. Because your daughter told him it was family property. Yes. Because she believed it was family property. Yes. My wife was quiet for a moment. Did you ever consider telling her the truth? I thought about it. No. Why not? Because she would have told Derek, and Derek would have found a way to use it. This was the only way. She nodded slowly. So you've been planning this for years. Not planning, I corrected. Preparing. There's a difference. Is there? I pulled out the fourth folder. This one was thicker. Contractor estimates, permit applications, renovation plans, all from 2008 when my wife and I had considered fixing up the house ourselves. We'd gotten quotes from every reputable contractor in town. Most had been reasonable, a few had been too high, and one had been surprisingly low. That contractor's name was Vincent Almeida. Local guy, family business, good reputation, maybe a little rough around the edges, but solid work. I'd liked him immediately. We hadn't ended up hiring him. The economy had collapsed, my wife's father had died, and we'd decided to leave the house alone for a while. But I'd kept his information, just in case. And 3 months ago, when my daughter had casually mentioned that Derek was planning to flip the beach house, I'd made a phone call. You called Almeida, my wife said. I did. And told him what? The truth. That someone was trying to sell property they didn't own. That this person was looking for cheap contractors who wouldn't ask too many questions. That if Almeida was willing to take the job and push for payment up front, he'd probably get stiffed. You warned him. I warned him. But he took the job anyway. He did. My wife frowned. Why? I smiled. Because I also told him that when Derek inevitably couldn't pay, I'd cover the debt myself, as a courtesy, as an apology for my son-in-law's behavior. She stared at me. You're going to pay Derek's contractor bill? Eventually. Once Almeida's applied enough pressure. Once Derek's desperate enough. Once everyone in town knows what happened. That's expensive? Yes, but worth it. My wife shook her head slowly, but she was smiling. I married a very strange man. You married a patient man. I closed the fourth folder and opened the fifth. This one contained something different. Photographs. Printed on plain paper, slightly faded, but clear enough. Pictures of Derek from last summer. Derek at a bar downtown. Derek with his arm around a blonde woman who wasn't my daughter. Derek getting into a hotel room. Derek leaving the next morning. My wife had taken these photographs. She'd followed him for 2 weeks after my daughter had let something slip at brunch. A comment about Derek working late, about him being stressed, about him needing space. My wife had given him space. Enough space to hang himself. Are you going to use these? She asked. Only if I have to. And if you don't have to? Then they stay here, with everything else. I closed the folder and returned it to the filing cabinet. Then I locked the cabinet, turned off the light, and rolled down the door. The padlock clicked shut with a sound like a prison cell closing. We drove home in silence. The streets were empty now, just dark houses and streetlights casting orange pools on wet pavement. It had started to rain, a light drizzle that made the windshield wipers squeak. He'll call again, my wife said. Probably. Tonight? Maybe, or tomorrow. Depends on how things go with Almeida. What do you think Almeida will do? I thought about it. Vincent Almeida was 58 years old, second-generation contractor, raised by a father who'd built half the houses in this town. He believed in hard work and fair payment, and looking a man in the eye when you shook his hand. He did not believe in excuses or extensions or payment plans. I think, I said slowly, that Almeida will make Derek's life very uncomfortable until Derek comes up with the money. How uncomfortable? Uncomfortable enough? My wife was quiet for a moment. You're enjoying this? I am. Is that wrong? I thought about my daughter's face at dinner, the way she'd looked at me like I was the villain, like I was the one ruining everything, like I was the one who'd lied and schemed and tried to steal from my own family. No, I said. It's not wrong. We pulled into our driveway. The house was dark, and the rain was coming down harder now. We sat in the car for a minute listening to the drops hammer against the roof. What happens next? My wife asked. Derek tries to borrow money, from friends, from banks, from anyone who'll listen. He fails. Almeida gets angrier, Derek gets desperate. And then? Then Derek realizes he has bigger problems than an unpaid contractor. She looked at me. What do you mean? I turned off the engine. The house isn't the only property in play. What else is there? You'll see. We went inside. I made tea while my wife changed out of her dinner clothes into an old sweater and jeans. When she came back downstairs, I was sitting at the kitchen table with my laptop open. What are you doing? She asked. Checking something. I pulled up the county property records website and typed in an address. Not the beach house, a different address, a commercial property on the north side of town. The records loaded slowly, property details, tax history, ownership chain, and there, listed as the current owner through another LLC, my name. My wife leaned over my shoulder. When did you buy that? 5 years ago. And Derek doesn't know? Derek doesn't know. But what does he? She stopped. Oh, I agreed. The property was a small warehouse that Derek's company used for storage. He'd rented it from what he thought was an absentee landlord, some faceless corporation that just cashed his checks every month and left him alone. The rent was cheap, the location was convenient, and Derek had never bothered to look into who actually owned it. Big mistake. How much does he owe? My wife asked. Rent? He's current, but his lease expires in 3 months. And you're not going to renew it? No. So he'll need to find a new space? Yes. Which will cost more. Significantly more. Commercial real estate has gone up in this area. He'll be lucky to find anything comparable for less than triple what he's paying now. My wife sat down across from me. You've been planning this for 5 years? Not planning, just positioning. That's the same thing. Maybe. She was quiet for a long time. Then, what else? What else what? What else have you positioned? What else don't I know about? I closed the laptop. Everything important you know about. The rest is just details. Details that might bankrupt our daughter's husband. Details that might teach him a lesson. Or destroy him? Same thing, I said. She didn't argue. My phone buzzed. Another text. This time from my daughter. Dad, please. We need to talk. Derek is losing it. The contractor won't leave. Please call me. I showed the text to my wife. Are you going to respond? She asked. Not tonight. She's scared. She should be. She's our daughter. I know. We sat there in the quiet kitchen, the rain drumming against the windows, the clock ticking on the wall. Somewhere across town, Derek was probably having the worst night of his life, and my daughter was probably crying. And the contractor was probably standing in front of the beach house, arms crossed, waiting for money that wasn't coming, and I felt nothing but a cold, calm satisfaction. This is going to get worse before it gets better, my wife said. I know. People are going to get hurt. I know. Our daughter is going to hate us. For a while. Maybe forever. I looked at her. Would you do it differently? She thought about it. Really thought about it. Then she shook her head. No, she said. I wouldn't. Then we see it through. To the end? To the end. She reached across the table and took my hand. Her fingers were cold, but her grip was strong. Okay, she said. Let's see it through. The contractor's civil claim arrived by certified mail on Saturday morning. I signed for it and brought it inside, the envelope heavy in my hand. My wife was making breakfast, eggs and toast, and coffee that filled the kitchen with warmth. What is it? She asked. I opened the envelope and scanned the documents. Legal letterhead, dense paragraphs, dollar amounts highlighted in yellow. Almeida's filing against Derek, I said. Officially. How much? $63,000, plus court costs and attorney fees. My wife flipped the eggs. So it's done? Not yet. Derek has 30 days to respond. Then it goes to mediation. Then, if that doesn't work, it goes to court. And you're still planning to pay it? Eventually. When? When the time is right. She plated the eggs and brought them to the table. We ate in silence. The food tasted like nothing. After breakfast, I drove to the beach house. I hadn't been inside in months, maybe years. Derek had changed the locks, but I had copies of the new keys. I'd had a locksmith make them weeks ago, after Derek first started his renovation plans. The locksmith hadn't asked questions. Small-town professionals knew how to mind their business. The house smelled like sawdust and paint. Derek had been busy, new drywall, fresh trim, updated fixtures. The kitchen had been gutted and partially rebuilt. Someone had done good work here. Too bad it was all for nothing. I walked through the room slowly, cataloging the changes. New flooring in the living room, recessed lighting in the hallway, a bathroom that had been completely redone, tile and fixtures, and a shower stall that probably cost $5,000. All of it was mine. All of it had always been mine. In the master bedroom, I found something unexpected. A bulletin board hanging on the wall, covered with photographs. Derek and my daughter on their wedding day. Derek and my daughter at the beach. Derek and my daughter at Christmas, both of them laughing at something off camera. In every photo, they looked happy. I stood there for a long time, staring at those images, trying to remember when I'd last seen my daughter laugh like that, trying to remember when I'd last felt anything other than anger toward the man in those photographs. I couldn't. My phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer. Hello? Mr. Richardson? A woman's voice, professional and crisp. Yes. This is Anne Brennan, Derek's mother. I closed my eyes. Of course. I'd been waiting for this call. Mrs. Brennan, I'm calling to ask you to stop. Stop what? Whatever vendetta you're pursuing against my son, whatever punishment you think he deserves. I'm asking you, as one parent to another, to stop. Your son tried to steal from me. He made a mistake. He's admitted that. But what you're doing, destroying his business, ruining his reputation, driving him to the point where he's having panic attacks and can't sleep, that's not justice. That's cruelty. Is it? Yes. And I think you know it. I think you've known it for weeks. But you're so caught up in being right that you can't see what you're doing to him. What you're doing to your own daughter. My daughter made her choice. She's 28 years old. She's barely an adult. She doesn't deserve to watch her marriage fall apart because of some property dispute. It's not a property dispute. It's theft. It's a mistake, one that could have been resolved quietly between family. Instead, you've turned it into a war. I sat down on the edge of the bed. The mattress was new, probably another one of Derek's purchases. Money he didn't have, spent on a house he didn't own. What do you want me to do? I asked. Forgive him. Let it go. Be the bigger person. And if I don't, then you're going to lose your daughter forever. She'll never forgive you for this. Never. She'll get over it. No, Anne said, her voice hard now. She won't. I know her. I've watched her grow up. I've seen how she looks at Derek. If you destroy him, she'll never speak to you again. That's her choice. It's your choice. You're the one pushing this. You're the one who could stop it right now. I was quiet for a moment. Outside, seagulls cried. The ocean rumbled in the distance. I'll think about it, I said finally. That's not good enough. It's all I've got. Anne was quiet for a long moment. You know what I think. I think this isn't about the house at all. I think this is about you feeling powerless, about you finally having a chance to prove that you matter, that you're not just some retired nobody that people can ignore. The words hit harder than I expected. I think, Anne continued, that you're a small, angry man who's been waiting for an excuse to hurt someone, and now you have one, so you're taking it as far as you can. I'm protecting what's mine. No, you're punishing someone for making you feel small. There's a difference. She hung up. I sat there on the edge of the bed, holding the phone, staring at the photographs on the wall. My daughter's face, frozen in happiness. Derek's arm around her shoulders. Both of them young and stupid and in love. When had I stopped wanting her to be happy? When had I started wanting her to hurt? My phone buzzed. A text from my wife. Where are you? I typed back. Beach house? Why? Thinking. About what? Everything. Come home. Soon. I stood and walked back through the house. In the living room, I noticed something I'd missed before. A stack of mail on the coffee table. Bills, mostly. But also a letter from the bank. I picked it up and opened it. Loan denial. Derek had tried to borrow money. Probably to pay Almeida. Probably to save his business. And the bank had turned him down. Because his credit was shot. Because his income was unstable. Because he was a bad risk. Because I'd made him a bad risk. I folded the letter and put it back in the envelope. Then I locked the house and drove home. My wife was in the garden when I got there, pulling weeds even though it was too cold for anything to grow. She looked up when I came outside. "Derek's mother called," I said. "What did she want?" "For me to stop." "Are you going to?" "I don't know." My wife pulled another weed and tossed it into a bucket. "Do you want to know what I think?" "Not really." "I think you're scared." "Of what?" "Of stopping, because if you stop, then you have to face what you've done, and what you've done is destroy a man for making a mistake." It wasn't just a mistake. It was. He was arrogant and stupid and greedy, but so is half the world. That doesn't mean they deserve to lose everything. He tried to steal from me, and you've punished him, repeatedly. At what point does it become enough? I didn't answer. My wife stood and brushed dirt off her knees. "I love you. I've loved you for 32 years. But this version of you, the one who enjoys watching people suffer, I don't love him." "I'm not enjoying it." "Aren't you?" I wanted to argue. I wanted to tell her she was wrong, but the truth was she wasn't. Some part of me had been enjoying it. The power, the control, the satisfaction of watching Derek squirm. "What do I do?" I asked quietly. "You stop. You pay Almeida. You talk to Derek. You try to fix this before it's too late. And if it's already too late, then at least you tried." That night I lay in bed and stared at the ceiling. My wife slept beside me, her breathing slow and steady. Outside, the wind rattled the windows. Inside, my mind raced. What if Anne was right? What if I'd let this become about ego instead of justice? What if I'd crossed a line I couldn't uncross? My phone lit up on the nightstand, a text from my daughter. "Dad, Derek's in the hospital. He took pills, a lot of pills. They're pumping his stomach. Please." I sat up so fast the room spun. My wife woke immediately, her hand on my arm. "What is it?" I showed her the text. "Oh, God," she said. We got dressed without speaking. The drive to the hospital took 15 minutes. Every minute felt like an hour. The emergency room was bright and loud and smelled like disinfectant. A nurse directed us to a private waiting area. My daughter sat there alone, her face blotchy from crying, her hands shaking. When she saw me, she stood. For a moment, I thought she was going to yell, to scream, to tell me this was all my fault. Instead, she just collapsed against my chest and sobbed. I held her. My wife held both of us. We stood there in that terrible fluorescent light, holding each other while the world fell apart around us. A doctor came out 20 minutes later. Young, tired, his scrubs wrinkled. "He's stable," the doctor said. "We got to him in time, but it was close." And my daughter made a sound like a wounded animal. "Can we see him?" my wife asked. "Family only. One at a time." My daughter went first. She was in there for maybe 10 minutes. When she came out, her face was blank, empty. "He wants to see you," she said to me. "Me?" "You." I looked at my wife. She nodded. Derek's room was small and dark. He lay in the hospital bed, tubes running from his arms, monitors beeping softly. His eyes were closed. I thought he was asleep. Then he spoke. "I'm sorry." I didn't say anything. "I'm sorry I tried to take your house. I'm sorry I dragged your daughter into this. I'm sorry I made such a mess of everything. Derek, no, let me finish. I need to say this." He opened his eyes and looked at me. "You were right. About everything. I was arrogant. I was entitled. I thought the world owed me something, and I was wrong. You didn't have to do this." "Yes, I did, because I couldn't see any other way out. I owed money I couldn't pay. My marriage was falling apart, and it was all my fault." "It wasn't all your fault." "Yes, it was. You gave me chances. You tried to warn me, but I didn't listen. I kept pushing, kept assuming I could fix everything if I just tried hard enough." I sat down in the chair beside his bed. "I pushed too hard. I wanted to punish you, and I went too far." "No, you just held me accountable. That's all. I'm the one who couldn't handle it." We sat in silence for a moment. The monitors beeped. Someone walked past in the hallway. "What happens now?" Derek asked. "Now you rest, you recover, and then we figure out how to fix this." "There's nothing to fix. I'm bankrupt. We'll pay Almeida, my wife and I. We'll cover your debt." "I can't let you do that." "It's already decided." "But why? After everything I did?" "Because you're family, and because my wife is right. I let this go too far. I let my anger turn me into someone I don't want to be." Derek's eyes filled with tears. "Thank you." "Don't thank me. Just get better." I stood to leave, but Derek's voice stopped me. "Mr. Richardson?" "Yeah?" I really am sorry. I know. Outside, my daughter and my wife were waiting. My daughter looked at me with hope and fear and exhaustion. Is he okay? She asked. He's going to be okay. And you? Are you okay? I thought about it. Honestly thought about it. No, I said, but I will be. We went home together, all three of us in one car, driving through the dark streets of our small town. My wife held my hand. My daughter sat in the back seat, quiet, her fingers tapping nervously against her phone. At our house, my daughter came inside instead of going home. She sat on the couch, small and exhausted, and my wife brought her tea. I should have told you, my daughter said suddenly, about Derek's plans. I knew it was wrong, but I was scared. Scared he'd leave me if I didn't support him. Scared I'd lose everything. You won't lose everything, I said. How do you know? Because we won't let you. She cried then. Really cried. The kind of crying that comes from deep inside, from months of holding everything together, from trying to be strong when you're falling apart. My wife and I sat on either side of her and held her while she broke, and for the first time in months, I felt something other than anger. I felt relief. Vincent Almeida met me at his office on Monday morning. The office was in an old warehouse on the north side of town, the kind of place that smelled like sawdust and motor oil and coffee that had been sitting on a burner too long. He had a desk made from a door and two sawhorses, a filing cabinet with a broken drawer, and a calendar from 2019 still hanging on the wall. You look like hell, he said when I walked in. Feel like it too. He poured coffee into a chipped mug and handed it to me. I heard about Derek. Word travels fast. Small town, EMTs talk, nurses talk. By morning, everyone knew. I took a sip of the coffee. It was terrible. He's stable now. Good. That's good. Almeida sat down behind his desk and leaned back. So, you're here to pay? I am. All of it. All of it. Plus interest. Plus whatever you need to cover your trouble. He nodded slowly. 70,000 should do it. Done? I pulled out my phone and opened my banking app. The transfer took less than a minute. $70,000, gone just like that. Almeida's phone buzzed. He checked it and nodded. Received. Thank you. Thank you for pulling him off me, for not making this worse than it had to be. I didn't do it for you. I did it because nobody needs to die over a property dispute. Fair enough. Almeida folded his hands on the desk. Can I give you some advice? If you want. Talk to your daughter. Really talk to her. Not at her, not around her, with her. I plan to? Good. Because I've seen families destroy themselves over less than this. And it's always the same. Pride, anger, the inability to admit when you're wrong. I know I was wrong. Do you? Or do you just know you got caught? I didn't answer. Almeida stood and walked to the window. Outside, his crew was loading lumber onto a truck. My father used to say something. He said, "You can be right or you can be happy. You can't always be both." Wise man. He was. He was also miserable. Died alone, angry at everyone, convinced the world had screwed him over. Almeida turned back to me. Don't be my father. I'll try. We shook hands. His grip was still strong, still calloused. I walked out into the cold morning air feeling lighter than I had in weeks. The drive home took me past the beach house. I stopped without meaning to, parking across the street, staring at the building. It looked abandoned now. No cars in the driveway, no signs of work. Just an empty house on an empty street. My phone rang. My daughter. Hey, I said. Hey. Her voice was small, uncertain. Can we talk? Of course. Not on the phone, in person. When? Now, if you're free? I looked at the beach house. I'm free. Where do you want to meet? The house. The beach house. I'm already here. Okay, I'll be there in 2 minutes. She was sitting on the front steps when I pulled up. She wore jeans and an old sweatshirt, her hair pulled back in a ponytail. She looked young, younger than 28, younger than she'd looked in years. I sat down beside her. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. Derek's coming home tomorrow, she said finally. That's good. They're making him see a therapist. Weekly sessions, maybe more. That's good too. He keeps apologizing. For everything. For the house, for the money, for trying to hit you. He can't stop apologizing. He doesn't need to apologize to me anymore. I'm the one who should be apologizing. She looked at me, surprised. What? I went too far. I knew what I was doing, and I did it anyway. I wanted to hurt him, to punish him, to make him suffer, and I succeeded. But the cost. I stopped. The cost was too high. Dad, no, let me finish. I was angry. I felt disrespected, taken advantage of. And instead of handling it like an adult, I turned it into a war. I used every advantage I had to destroy someone who'd wronged me. And I almost. My daughter started crying. It wasn't just you. It was both of us. Derek and me. We thought we were so smart, so clever. We thought we could just take the house and flip it and no one would care. Why? Because we were desperate. Derek's business was failing. We had debts, we needed money, and the house was just sitting there, empty, and we thought... She wiped her eyes. We thought you wouldn't notice, or wouldn't care, or wouldn't do anything about it. You thought I was weak. No, we thought you were, I don't know, passive, like you'd just let it happen because it was family? And when I didn't, Derek panicked, and I panicked, and everything just spiraled. We sat there in silence. A car drove past. Someone's dog barked in the distance. I'm sorry, my daughter said, for lying to you, for helping him, for making you feel like your own family was stealing from you. I'm sorry, too, for pushing too hard, for enjoying your suffering, for turning this into something cruel. She leaned her head against my shoulder. Can we fix this? I don't know, but we can try. What do we do? We start over. Derek gets help. You both figure out your finances. I help where I can, but I don't enable. And we all try to remember that we're family. That sounds hard. It will be. But possible? Maybe. She was quiet for a moment. Do you still own the house? I do. Are you going to sell it? I looked at the building. Derek had done good work. The renovation was half finished but solid. With another few months and the right contractor, it could be beautiful. I don't know, I said. What do you think I should do? I think you should finish what Derek started. Hire someone to complete the renovation. Then either sell it or keep it. But don't let it sit here empty. That feels wrong. Okay. Really? Really, I'll finish it. She smiled. A small smile, but real. Thank you. We sat there for a while longer, watching the ocean, not saying much. Eventually, my daughter stood. I should go. Derek's probably awake by now. I told him I'd bring lunch. Tell him, I paused. Tell him I'm not angry anymore. Are you sure? No, but I'm working on it. She hugged me. A real hug, tight and fierce, the way she used to when she was little. I love you, Dad. I love you too. I watched her drive away. Then I got in my own car and headed home. My wife was in the kitchen when I arrived making soup. The house smelled like onions and chicken stock and garlic. How did it go? She asked. Better than expected. Good. She stirred the pot. I talked to Anne, Derek's mother. And? She thanked us for paying Almeida, for helping Derek. We didn't do it for her. I know, but she's grateful anyway. My wife set down the spoon and turned to face me. Are we okay? You and me? I think so. Are we? I don't know. You scared me. These past few weeks watching you become someone I didn't recognize, it scared me. I scared myself. Good. You should be scared. What you did. She stopped. What we did. Because I helped. I encouraged you. I gave you information and suggestions, and I stood by while you destroyed a man. You also told me to stop. But not soon enough. We stood there in the kitchen, the soup bubbling on the stove, the afternoon light slanting through the windows. We can't undo it, I said finally. What's done is done, but we can try to do better. How? By finishing the house, by helping Derek get back on his feet, by being the kind of people we want to be instead of the kind of people we became. My wife nodded. Okay, then that's what we'll do. She went back to her soup. I sat at the kitchen table and opened my laptop. I pulled up the list of local contractors, the same list I'd looked at 12 years ago when we'd first considered renovating. Most of the names were familiar. Some had retired, a few had died, but one name stood out. Vincent Almeida. I picked up my phone and called him. Yeah, he answered. I have a job for you, if you're interested. What kind of job? Finishing a renovation. The beach house. Someone started it but couldn't finish. I need someone to complete the work. Almeida was quiet for a moment. You want me to finish Derek's project? I do. Why? Because you do good work. Because you deserve to see the job through, and because it feels right. That's a weird reason to hire someone. Maybe, but it's my reason. He laughed. All right. When do you want me to start? Whenever you're ready. I'll look at it tomorrow, see what needs to be done. Then I'll send you an estimate. Fair enough. I hung up and closed the laptop. My wife brought over 2 bowls of soup and sat down across from me. You hired Almeida? She asked. I did. To finish the house? Yes. And then? And then we'll see. We ate in silence. The soup was good. The kitchen was warm. Outside, the sun was setting, painting the sky orange and pink and purple. For the first time in months, I felt like maybe, just maybe, things were going to be okay. 3 weeks passed. Derek came home from the hospital. My daughter moved back in with him. They started couples therapy. Derek started seeing his own therapist 3 times a week. I stayed away. Not because I wanted to, but because they needed space, needed time to figure out who they were without me looming over them. Almeida started work on the beach house. He moved methodically, fixing what Derek had started, correcting mistakes, improving where he could. I stopped by once a week to check progress. We didn't talk much, just walked through the rooms, pointed at things that needed attention, nodded at work that was done well. It was the kind of relationship I could understand, no drama, no emotion, just work. My wife started volunteering at the food bank. She said she needed to do something useful, something that reminded her there were problems bigger than ours. I didn't argue. I understood. I tried to go back to normal, read the paper, watched TV, went for walks. But normal felt wrong somehow, like putting on clothes that didn't fit anymore. One afternoon, I drove to the storage unit. I hadn't been there since the night of the restaurant dinner, and part of me wondered if I'd imagined the whole thing, the filing cabinet, the documents, the photographs. But it was all still there, exactly as I'd left it. I stood in that small concrete room, looking at the evidence of my carefully planned revenge, and felt nothing but exhaustion. What had been the point? I'd wanted to teach Derek a lesson. I'd wanted to punish him for disrespecting me. I'd wanted to prove that I mattered. And I had. I'd taught him. I'd punished him. I'd proved my point. And now? Now my daughter barely spoke to me. Now Derek was in therapy. Now everyone in town knew the story, and half of them thought I was a hero while the other half thought I was a monster. And I didn't know which half was right. I closed the filing cabinet and locked the unit. On the drive home, I passed the marina. Boats rocked gently in their slips. Gulls circled overhead. Everything looked peaceful. But I knew better. I knew that underneath the surface, things were churning, changing, breaking down and building back up, just like my family. At home, my wife was on the phone. She saw me come in and held up one finger. Wait. Okay, she said into the phone. Okay, yes, we'll be there. Thank you. She hung up and looked at me. That was your daughter. She wants us to come to dinner. When? Tonight? Both of us? Both of us. I sat down heavily. I don't know if I'm ready. You're not, but you're going anyway. What if Derek doesn't want me there? He asked for you specifically. He did? Yes. I thought about this. What do I say to him? The truth, whatever that is for you. We drove to their house in silence. It was a small rental in the old part of town, the kind of place young couples moved into when they couldn't afford anything better. The paint was peeling, the yard needed work, but lights glowed in the windows, and I could smell something cooking. My daughter answered the door. She looked better, still thin, still tired, but better. She hugged my wife first, then me. Thanks for coming, she said. Of course. Inside, Derek was setting the table. He looked up when we entered and froze. For a long moment, nobody moved. Then Derek put down the plates he was holding and walked over. He extended his hand. I shook it. Thank you for coming, he said. Thank you for having us. I'm making lasagna. It's not great, but it's edible. I'm sure it's fine. We sat down to eat. The lasagna was actually pretty good. My wife complimented it, and Derek's face brightened. It's my grandmother's recipe, he said. She taught me when I was a kid. I'd forgotten about it until recently. It's delicious, my wife said. We made small talk. The weather, the news, neutral topics that didn't require anyone to think too hard or feel too much. Then during dessert, Derek spoke. I want to apologize, he said. Formally, to both of you. My wife and I exchanged glances. You don't have to, I started. Yes, I do. I need to say this. I've been working on it with my therapist, and I need to say it. He took a breath. I tried to steal from you. I knew the house wasn't mine. I knew I was taking something that didn't belong to me. But I convinced myself it was okay because it was family property, because you weren't using it, because I needed the money. I came up with a dozen justifications, and all of them were lies. He looked at me. I disrespected you. I dismissed you. I treated you like you didn't matter. And when you stood up for yourself, I got angry instead of taking responsibility. I blamed you for my problems instead of admitting I'd created them myself. My daughter reached over and took his hand. I'm sorry, Derek said. For all of it. For the house, for the lies, for dragging your daughter into my mess, for making you feel like you had to go to war just to protect what was yours. I didn't know what to say. Part of me wanted to accept the apology and move on. Part of me wanted to tell him he was right, that he'd been wrong, that he'd deserved everything that happened, but mostly I just felt tired. I accept your apology, I said finally, and I have one of my own. Derek looked surprised. I went too far, I said. I had every right to be angry, every right to protect my property, but I took it beyond that. I wanted to hurt you, to punish you, to watch you suffer. You didn't. I did. Maybe not directly, and I'm sorry for that. We sat in silence. My daughter was crying quietly. My wife's hand found mine under the table. So where do we go from here? Derek asked. Forward, I said. Carefully, but forward. Can I ask you something? Derek said. Sure. The house. What are you going to do with it? Almeida's finishing the renovation. After that, I don't know. Maybe I'll sell it. Maybe I'll keep it. I haven't decided. Derek nodded slowly. If you do sell it, could I help? Not for profit. Just to help. To see the project through to the end. I thought about it. Let me think about that. Fair enough. We finished dessert. My wife helped my daughter with dishes while Derek and I sat on the back porch. It was cold, but neither of us seemed to notice. How's therapy going? I asked. Hard. Really hard. I'm dealing with stuff I've been avoiding for years. Stuff about my father, about money, about success. It's exhausting. But helpful. Yeah, I think so. I'm starting to see patterns. Ways I've been sabotaging myself. Ways I've been chasing things that don't actually matter. Like what? Like status. Like looking successful instead of being successful. Like proving to people, to my father, mostly, that I'm worth something. I understood that better than I wanted to. What about you? Derek asked. Are you seeing anyone? A therapist? No. Maybe you should. Maybe. We sat in silence for a while. Inside, I could hear my wife and daughter laughing about something. I meant what I said, Derek said quietly, about being sorry. I know it doesn't undo anything, but I needed you to know. I know. And I meant what I said about helping with the house, not for me, but because it feels unfinished, like there's still something left to do. I thought about this, about what it would mean to work with Derek, about whether I could trust him, about whether I even wanted to. But maybe that was the point. Maybe trust wasn't something you had or didn't have. Maybe it was something you built, slowly, carefully, one small step at a time. Okay, I said. Derek looked at me. Okay? When Almeida's done with the major work, you can help with the finishing touches, painting, trim, whatever needs doing, but you work under Almeida's supervision, and if he says you're not pulling your weight or causing problems, you're done. Understood? Understood. We shook hands again. This time it felt different, less formal, more like a truce. My wife and I left around 9. The drive home was quiet but comfortable. That went better than I expected, my wife said. It did. Are you really going to let Derek help with the house? I am. Why? Because I think he needs it, and because I think I need it too. She smiled. You're a strange man. So you keep telling me? At home, we got ready for bed. My wife fell asleep quickly, but I lay awake for a while, thinking. About Derek, about my daughter, about the choices I'd made and the consequences they'd had, about the man I'd been and the man I wanted to become. Eventually, I slept. The renovation took another 6 weeks. Almeida worked steadily, bringing in his crew when he needed help, working alone when he didn't. True to his word, Derek showed up 3 days a week after his therapy sessions and did whatever Almeida asked. I stopped by every few days. Sometimes I'd watch them work. Sometimes I'd help with small tasks, holding boards, carrying supplies, cleaning up. I wasn't much use, but I was there. My daughter came by once. She walked through the house slowly, taking in all the changes. New floors, new walls, new everything. It's beautiful, she said. It's getting there. Derek's happy to be helping. I'm glad. She looked at me. Are you really, or are you just saying that? I'm really glad. It's good for him, and it's good for me. How is it good for you? I thought about how to answer. It reminds me that not everything has to be a fight. that sometimes people can just work together and make something good. She smiled. That's very wise, Dad. Don't sound so surprised. She laughed. It was the first time I'd heard her laugh in months. By early December, the house was done. Almeida did a final walkthrough with me, pointing out details, explaining choices he'd made, making sure I was satisfied with everything. It's perfect, I said. It's pretty good, he corrected. Nothing's perfect. Close enough. He handed me the final invoice. I looked at the number and didn't flinch. It was fair. More than fair, considering the quality of work. I'll have the money transferred today, I said. Appreciate it. We shook hands. Derek stood nearby, watching nervously. You did good work, I told him. I just did what Almeida told me to. Still, you showed up, you worked hard. That counts for something. Thank you. After Almeida left, Derek and I stood on the front porch, looking out at the ocean. The afternoon light was soft and golden, the kind of light that makes everything look better than it is. What are you going to do with it? Derek asked. The house? Yeah. I'm going to give it to you and my daughter. Derek stared at me. What? I'm signing the deed over to both of you, as a gift. You can't... I can, and I will, but there are conditions. What conditions? You can't sell it for at least 5 years. If you do, the deed reverts back to me. If you need money, you figure out another way. If you need help, you ask, but you don't sell. Derek was shaking his head. I don't understand. After everything, you're still family. And this house has been nothing but trouble for all of us. Maybe it can be something good instead? I don't know what to say. Say you'll take care of it. Say you'll remember what almost happened because of it. Say you'll do better. I will. I swear I will. Good. We stood there for a while longer, not saying much. Eventually, Derek went home to tell my daughter. I stayed on the porch, watching the sun set over the water. My phone rang. My wife. How did it go? She asked. I gave them the house. Silence. Then, you what? I signed the deed over, to both of them, as a gift. Are you insane? Possibly. They tried to steal it. They almost died because of it. And you're just giving it to them? Yes. She was quiet for a long time. Why? Because I don't want it anymore. Because it's caused nothing but pain. Because maybe, if they actually own it, they'll appreciate what they have instead of always wanting more. That's a big maybe. I know. Another pause. Are you sure about this? No, but I'm doing it anyway. She laughed. You're either very wise or very stupid. Probably both. Come home. I'll make dinner. I'll be there soon. I hung up and took one last look at the house. It really was beautiful. Almeida and Derek had done good work, the kind of work that lasts. I got in my car and drove home. The streets were empty, the town quiet. Christmas lights were starting to appear on houses. The holidays were coming. At home, my wife had made pot roast. We ate at the kitchen table, just the two of us, talking about nothing important. After dinner, we watched TV, some nature documentary about penguins. My wife fell asleep on the couch, her head on my shoulder. I stayed awake, thinking about the past few months, about what I'd done, about what I'd almost done, about the man I'd been and the man I was becoming. I'd wanted revenge, I'd wanted to punish, I'd wanted to win, and I had. I'd won. But the victory felt hollow, like eating food that doesn't satisfy, like sleeping without resting. Maybe that was the lesson. Maybe winning wasn't what mattered. Maybe what mattered was choosing when to fight and when to walk away, when to hold on and when to let go. Or maybe I was just tired and overthinking everything. My phone buzzed, a text from my daughter. Dad, Derek told me. I don't know what to say. Thank you doesn't seem like enough, but thank you. I typed back, You're welcome. Take care of it. We will. I promise. I set down the phone. My wife stirred beside me, still asleep. Outside, the wind rattled the windows. Inside, the house was warm. For the first time in a long time, I felt at peace.